This is Andrew Stotz of Stotz Investment Research, and I'm going to be talking about companies in Asia and how they hold the highest levels of cash. The question that I asked to do this research was how much cash is held at companies in various regions around the world. Well, here's the answer. First of all, the global cash levels are 10.8%. We can see that companies in Asia, I exclude Japan, are at 13.9%. If we look at Southern Asia, 10, all the way down to Eastern Europe at 6.1. And of course, I also try to bring out a couple countries. And what we can see, for instance, is the US is at a little, it's just at average at about 11%. China and Japan have massive amounts of cash. Well, let's go through this in a little bit more detail. First of all, let's look at the yellow line. It's the global line. And we can see that the lowest point on that global line right here was about 8%, and we're at about the high point right now at 10.8. So we can see that's the range. And previously I had asked the question, we had gone through a lot of research about why U.S. companies had so much cash. But the real question we asked to ask from this chart is, why did U.S. companies hold so little cash in that 95 to 2003 period? Luckily for us, it doesn't matter that much. It's an exceptionally low period of time, and I don't see a value in doing research going back all those years for me. So let's go across the region. First is the region of Asia ex-Japan. And we can see here that Asia ex-Japan has always had a higher cash level except in the 1997 Asian financial crisis. But otherwise, it's been higher than the global average, higher than the US, and right now is at 13.9. Let's look at Southern Asia. Mainly this is India as the main contributor. We can look at the period 95, 96, 97. That blue line during this period of time, it's really unlikely that it's a valid data because it's a small number of companies. But by this time, we can say about 4%, and it's been rising, but still a little bit below the global average at 10.2. Western Europe. The blue line, we can see Western Europe was about at US average, or global average, but now has fallen a bit below it at 9.3. Middle East and Africa is falling to below the global companies at 9.1. This recent fall that we can see, the blue line falling right here, is probably related to oil price just as much as this rise right here in 2004, 2005. Of course, rising oil price means rising profits. Rising profits usually means higher cash. Now, if we look at Latin America, we can see that it's relatively low cash levels compared to the global levels. And recently it's fallen a bit. Again, this is probably due to the fall in oil prices, though we didn't see the gain from oil prices here in Latin America. So maybe it's not. That's a question we could dig in deeper on. Eastern Europe, this is interesting. What we can see is that the blue line, Eastern Europe, has always been below the global average. And we can see in this case that it's deeply below at 6.1. Now, this isn't a study about the profit margin in different regions, but I suspect if we looked at the profit margin for Eastern European companies, we'd see that it's relatively low. Again, correlation is usually high. High profits means high cash. And let's look at a couple countries. So here's China, and we can see that China, in 1995, it was down at 7%. But remember, 1995, the listed companies in China were pretty minimal. So I would argue that piece of data in the early 1995 probably is not that valuable. If we remove that piece of data, we start at this 12%. And we can say that it went as low as 11%, and now it's as high as about 14%. So Chinese people have a propensity to save, and we can see Chinese companies do also. Now, cash is high at Japanese companies also. Remember, Japanese government has a lot of debt, and therefore it's harder to have a lot of cash. But Japanese companies, in this case, do have a huge amount of cash at about 13.5. So, to wrap this up, we can see that countries in Asia have the highest level of cash. China and Japan both have more than 13% of cash as a percent of assets. So whether you're forecasting a company's future or looking at a company's current condition, this can give you a guide by region. Of course, you would look more deeply into the sector and the specifics of that company, but this gives you a rough guide. I hope that helps you. Have a great day.